I'm Andrew Armstrong, welcome to the Back Office Teardown Lab. I have with me here a Citroen, a Citroen indicator column thingy from a Citroen Zara Picasso, and it's used on loads of things. You might even have this in your own car because it's a standard Delphi part. And the problem is the left-hand side doodad, this thing is just going crazy because the lights are sort of coming on randomly, indicators aren't staying on, things like that. So I'm going to open this up and have a look. It's taken me a while to actually pull it apart to get to this point. Obviously you've got to take the steering wheel off, and that's another big story. Be very careful with this thing, by the way. This is a clock spring. Obviously it goes to the airbags and the horn. You do not want to mess with this. You can see I've actually notched a little alignment mark here, probably just about. It's a bit dark, I know, but you can see there. See there's a sort of alignment mark? That's because you don't want this to sort of spin in a crazy way, because it's going to, it has to rotate with the steering wheel, and if you get it wrong, then it's going to snap some stuff up. So you can see here there's actually an indicator, and it's pointing, you see these, there's actually ribbons here, well not ribbons, like grooves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 grooves here, and because the car wheels should be central, you'll get this sort of stylus pin, see it here, in the middle. That's how you know you're in the right spot, okay? So the stylus pin should be on this middle pin, and you'll see an indicator. There's two small arrows right here. And because the steering on the car wasn't quite straight, because the steering wheel locks off at a slight angle, just try to get that into focus for you. You can see on your own unit here, there's two arrows that should align, and as you turn that, you'll see the arrows moving. So there we go, let's not worry about that too much. I'm just going to pick the plastic apart now all the way around and see if I can pop the cover off. I'm assuming that's how you get it off because that's all I can see. There doesn't seem to be any screws or anything like that. I feel I may need more than one screwdriver just to keep this sort of half prized as I work my way around. So that's kind of a lot of the top. Let's see if I can find another screwdriver. Only a little bitty one, but maybe it's enough. Nope, screwdriver is bending. Excuse the light. If it's one thing I need to sort out in here, it's my illumination. It's no good for nothing. Alright, that's the top clips here done. Just going to work my way around, turn it round. This sort of ring fell off. Keep that aside. Hopefully I'll remember which way around that goes. So I've undone most of those. There's one more underneath here. I'm just curious though, there is an accessory here. I think this is what we're looking at. Some sort of accessory, which is the radio module, and that those can clip in and out somehow, so we might have to attack that in a moment. We will, because that's all of the other fasteners taken care of. I can see underneath for that accessory there's a tab here. Just going to poke that through. There we go, see, take off the whole radio stalk. On the other side there's just a cap. That would be the cruise control, because I do have another Citroen and it does have cruise control in that position. I can confirm that. Not sure what would happen if I took the cruise control off there and fit it to the other one. It's all fly-by-wire, it'd probably just work. Not really, definitely wouldn't work. So there's just some remaining clips here. There's two clips here around this speaker region. I have popped them, but they don't appear to be yielding their bounty to me just yet. I'm just being a little bit cautious because I don't know if this clock spring mechanism kind of comes off or if it stays part of that. I'm guessing it stays part of it, but just take your time with it. Good. Final clips are coming off. Right, so now the clips are off. Feels this part's a back cover, and indeed it is. Look, see the back cover's just slipped right off. You can see there's a bit of contact grease in there because I was trying to sort of clean up what I could in there. And this is obviously the mechanism, look at that, for the cancelling. Not sure what it should look like, looks okay. Now the issue I have, oh look, the stalks are all loose as well. I don't want to lose anything, so I'm going to just unplug. Crikey O'Reilly, look at this. I just got to show you something before I go any further. Do you see here, there's some sort of all sorts of wipey mechanisms going on. See that? And then you can see underneath here there's an equivalent brush on the bottom. So there's lots of places that this thing could fail, so I'm going to be very cautious. So that's when you push in and out. You see when you push in and out, those switches engage. I'm just going to remove the ribbon cables. Just take these off very carefully and put them aside. I don't want to lose any parts. I can tell you, losing parts here is going to write off this whole unit. There we go. So first things first, I'm just going to inspect the actual stalk itself, because it's the kind of easiest thing. It's kind of greasy and gunky, I want to clean it. I did try to clean it using various cleaners and penetrating oils, silicone based ones, and you know, they've made a mess of it really, so let's wipe that all up. There's a bit of grease on it, that's acceptable. We'll try to leave some of that on. So let's see how this works. So the problem I had was sort of the cancelling and all those things are fine, but it's the lights. It was detecting these lights to be on when they weren't and things like that, and I can tell those things must be coming in off this ribbon cable. So that's a bit alarming, because there's obviously some switches in the end here for all those functions. So if they're registering wrong, is it a function of the switch in here, or is it a function of the board? Because the PCB is going to have various control logic here to pick that up, and if that's dirty or somehow corroded, it could be causing some sort of incorrect signals. Just going to quickly see how loose this PCB is and if it's something that might want to give itself up, because if we can get the PCB out, we can actually clean that. Let's not forget we've got the clock spring still on the back of this. Right. I'm just wobbling it, just gently wobbling it. Those contacts on that clock spring have to connect to somewhere, so they've got to be coming through to here at some point. I'm not sure where. I suspect this collet here has to be removed. This is the this is the edge of the clock spring, and once we get that, there is actually a spring in there, and the whole thing could go boing. So I'm just trying to see if there's any point in taking that off. It's just plain PCB underneath. There's no components. So all the components are on the top. Interestingly enough, I think there is actually, yes, there are pins here to that clock spring that penetrate from the PCB, from the other side through the PCB and then into this connector from the back. So I don't think we need to worry. Let's push that back into place. Might just get some PCB cleaner onto these. Look at these brushes. They're so delicate. I'm just going to remove them and put them on the table in the order and direction that they came off. Let's get some PCB cleaner. Wipe this all up. Got my Flux Clean PCB cleaning solvente. So I'm going to pay particular attention to these swipey swipe areas here, and I'm going to try to steer really clear away from things like this can. where I can't get under, confirm that I've removed all the cleaner. So I'm not worried about being too rough with the actual circuits. I'm actually being worried about being rough with these small plastic features that hold the brushes in, because they do kind of feel like you could just mash them off. Okay. So I'm just going to take my blue paper and my stiff brush and just work it onto those contacts. Look at that, that's beautiful. Beautiful! Not so beautiful, but still pretty damn clean. Slowly working my way through all the contact sets. Bit of the PCB while I'm at it. In there. Now we know this is probably the PCB that does the I/O. This is the PCB, part of the PCB that does the I/O here, I should think, to convert those signals into something that the ECU at the other end enjoys. So I'm just going to give it all another darn good scrubbing. Really want that clean. There's no spurious signals getting picked up. Car environment, automotive environment is a really nasty environment for electronics, so there could be all sorts of noise, things like that on there. Okay. So we can let that dry, let that solvent evaporate. And while it's doing that, let's have a closer look at these brushes. I think that they're pretty good. I'm not really going to do anything with these. I wouldn't advise trying to bend them or anything like that. I think they're okay. There's a tiny bit of greenery on them. But as these are doing the sort of high beam and things like that, I don't think they're a problem. I'm just going to examine the other end. Let's just try to work out how this works. So that's, so this one at the bottom is doing the indicator left, right, but it wasn't really the problem. It was sometimes the lights were coming on. Maybe the high beam was the issue, who knows? If you do the high beam, the lights come on, don't they, in the car? So I guess there's the possibility that if it was accidentally high beaming, I'll just clean this bit of ribbon cable up, that looks okay. Not quite sure how this lot comes apart and whether or not I want to go there. Probably not. Let's hope this bit's okay, and if not, we're kind of stuffed anyway. And then the other end, just a couple of springy things. Not sure how that spring actually is actuated. Doesn't matter. I think we can reassemble this. Yeah, I mean, these feel okay. Do I dare give them a tiny amount? I can't help it. It's from my growing up with Scalextrics. You just need to fiddle with something, don't you? So just do them one at a time. Bend one up, you know, a couple of millimeters. I'll show you what I do on the other one. I'll zoom in. Yeah, I mean, that's a definite contact now. So if you can imagine, I'm hoping we'll be able to focus on this. Focus on my hand. Right, so you see these pins. I'm just going to try to bend one out. Yeah, bend the first one out a couple of mil. and that'll sort of stay there, and then bend the second one out to follow the first. They're both exactly the same. You might not be able to see it because it's a very fiddly thing to focus on. You might need a microscope to be able to get this set up properly. But you'll figure it out. It's pretty easy. It's pretty self-explanatory once you're in there what it's you're trying to achieve. This one, be cautious. If you just ram that in, the two pins are going to try to go under the PCB. That's going to stuff you, so that's a tricky blighter. Gonna have to try to figure out how we do this. Maybe I'm going to use some tweezers. Just pop that in. Yeah. I'm going to grab the pin from the top with my tweezers and see if I can just lift that up. I can certainly lift one, but whether I can get... yes, there we go. That's tricky. Be careful with that one. That one's definitely a gotcha waiting to happen. And then the final one, we'll do that same trick again. Bending it up. Just about, just a millimetre really, I think, when you measure it. You have to obviously bend it a bit further because it's going to spring back to where it wanted to be. Yeah, so those are in. Let's wipe down the ribbon on the other side. We've got another set of contacts on the right hand side stalk, which is a washer one. I don't think we had a problem with that, but you know, as I'm bending everything up today, I'm being a bit of a bender today. Let's bend that one up too. Bender being the robot from Futurama, of course. Pop that back in. Let's pop the ribbon cable in. It's sitting nicely firmly in there. Good connection. I'm pretty happy with that. Don't see any tears or kinks in it. Again, just check my clock spring is still clock headed. Yeah, it's about where it was. But maybe if I could sit this on something. No. Let's just get on with it. And this is the other side. So we've got a feature here that slide has to actually go into, so that's going to be tricky. It's going to be critical to line these up. Take your time with it. I think you're only going to get one shot at this, at best. So I'd say that one has to come out a bit. Right, so I think that's them. I mean, I'm just looking at this, just seeing if there's a way of testing this one on the right hand side, but it's not immediately obvious actually how this works, because it's quite clear how this bottom one will engage, and then but how this top one, it's all a bit bizarre. Look, I'll show you. See how that moves forward? That's what it's doing. It's just a tiny deflection. Putting that ribbon cable in now. I've gone very quiet because it's dooky actually. I'm trying to hold a lot of pieces together here. You don't want any of this jumping out. Just one final check. Oh boy, like Sam Beckett on Quantum Leap. It's good. I'm happy. It's good. So we'll just replace this top now. Just keeping an eye on it, make sure it all goes in the right places. Don't want anything jumping out at the last second. And that's it. Whew. Sounds all right. I guess the proof of the pudding is going to be using it. Hopefully that'll work. Please feel free to comment down below, click subscribe, and as ever, thanks for watching.